next we have the Mr. John Williams, Deputy Chief Appraisal, and Steve Wise from Tyler Technologies, Inc. Council last year or so approved funding to upgrade our technology for tax assessor and tax commissioner. They have been working and scheduled to go live January 1, 2017, I believe. They've been out in the field getting everything going and transferring from the old system, Oasis, to the IES World. We wanted you to kind of hear from them as to where they are with things. And so, John.
City Manager, thank you. You know me, I'm John Williams. This is Steve Wise. He is the on-site project manager for what happens here in Columbus. Last time we were here, we had Mary Griffin, who was also Steve's boss, who was here. Don't need her today. We're well into it. I asked Steve to give us something that we could put up on one screen, a timeline that simplifies exactly what we're doing in this project and where we're at. We get the question often about why can't we know this? Why does it have to be 1/1/17? Why can't we get values earlier than that? So I thought the easiest way to do this is put it on a timeline, let Steve talk through the timeline with you as simply as we can, make it as the least confusing as possible, and then we'll answer those questions. Steve?
Good morning, Council. As John stated, I am the project manager for Tyler Technologies, overseeing the 2017 revaluation project for Muskogee County. John and I put a timeline together, as you can see on the board, briefly just to explain some of the target dates, the percentages complete as far as what we've completed so far, and then the stages of completion between now and project in at fruition. Basically, the project started January 1st, 2015. We took the first 3 months of the project and shot all of the street level images on every improved parcel within the county. From June through November 2015, the appraisal desktop verification ADV system was utilized and reviewed all the parcels. ADV review resulted in 35% of the total parcel count requiring some type of edit or change that we had noticed. Of those edits, 29% were simple data entry changes, such as an improvement being added, or there might have been something that needed to be changed or removed from the parcel. 6% of those edits required a field check. The edits are currently 45% complete as of today, and those will all be completed and entered into the IES test site by the end of April 2016. The next 4 stages will be completed between a time frame between April and June of 2016. We will analyze and validate all sales from 2014, 15, and 16, and only those sales that are bona fide arm's length transactions will be used to determine the market value. These verified sales then become the basis of our land valuation. Location factors are then established based on these land valuations and grouped into neighborhood boundaries. Cost tables are then built and calibrated using data collected from the sales analysis. Local, regional, and national cost data is utilized, and when available, newly constructed dwellings are also used to develop these tables. The next 10 months will be spent developing property valuations using the applicable approaches to value. Final review and valuation will be conducted by licensed Georgia appraisers to ensure quality, accuracy, uniformity, and equity throughout the county. These valuation results are presented to the chief appraiser for the county staff to review, who then deliver these values to the Board of Assessors for final approval sometime in May of 2017. Once all values are reviewed and approved by the board, the annual notice of assessment is mailed to each property owner. The owner has 45 days from the date of the notice to file an appeal to dispute their value. Tyler Technologies will be responsible for reviewing all the appeals from August through December 2017. Once appeals are complete, a mass appraisal report summarizing the reassessment project will be provided and delivered to the chief appraiser. So that kind of gives you a rough idea of the stages of the process that we have in that reassessment project. As you can see, based on our graph, we're roughly 25% or so finished with the first few stages of the project. We're in the kind of the cleanup phase, so to speak. We're continuing to make those changes in the system and to the test site. So,
Let me just correct that last statement. That chart represents 25, those green bars, that's 25% of the project is complete. So what he's done is convert all the data that we've had in Oasis to the new system. They've basically double-checked themselves to maintain accuracy. This data entry edits that we're in the process of doing should be finished by April, end of April. Steve, what was the number? I think, by my recollection, it's about 33 to 35% of the parcels that we looked at, both commercially and residentially, had some form of edit that was something in addition or subtraction of that parcel as we had it. Could be a shed, could be an attached carport. It's typically something that doesn't require a permit, because we get permits on a regular basis, and so we know what's been added by permit almost always. If we don't, there's been a flaw. But what he's picking up is things that don't necessarily require a permit, but they're there. We use a shed, for example. It's there, we see it on the aerial, he sends somebody out, takes a picture of it if we didn't get it first shot, and then we measure that and try to put that back in the system to be valued down the road and down the road in this project. The 1/1/17 date, that is an as-of date for the valuations of the properties here in the county. Currently, we have 69,507 taxable real property parcels in the county. That doesn't include the it does include what is known as the H account, that property that is over 2 acres for certain residential properties. 69,507. Got that this morning. That's why I know exactly what the number is. Of those parcels, approximately, well, I've got the number exactly. It's 35,014. 35,014 of those parcels have homestead exemption. It's about half, just slightly over 50%.
Give us the number one more time. I've got the 65.
Well, and remember, I'm going to ask that he email
Yeah.
that
Okay.
information to me, and then I can send it to you, because when I met with them, they broke it all down
Yeah,
for me, and I want you to have that information, and that's why I put them on the agenda.
sure.
So
Yeah, John, if you just give that number.
Sure.
The last one.
The homestead exemption at parcels, 35,014.
Yeah.
The information you're speaking of, Mr. City Manager, we've got it in great detail. We've got that information in great detail. I didn't see it, and I apologize if that's exactly what you wanted. I can email that out when I get back to my office.
Yeah. Just
But there
if you
are
email it to me,
very
I'll get it to
specific numbers. I'll send that to you as to what
get
the
all that.
percentages are that's been added.
Yeah.
But the question is, if we know the value on 1/1/17, why can't we know the value on 12/1/16? That 1/1/17 is an effective date for the values. We use sales all the way up into December to add to that effective date value at 1/1/17. But we don't know that value as of 1/1/17. That's just the date we look at the value of the property. We take the next 5 months to churn that information to the point where we can present it to the Board of Assessors for their approval. That's the board that you all elected. They're the ones that come up and say that is the value of the property. My goal is 1 May. In previous years, it was end of May, even into June. So we're backing that up. This year was one of the earliest years we've had. We'll continue to try to push that back closer to the beginning of the year, but by and large, that's April and May timeframe. Then we send the notices out. Then every taxpayer or property owner has the right to appeal. So those values go through an appeal process, and we don't really know what the ending value will be until late in the year. So I hope that answers that one question about why can't we know it earlier. That is the effective date in the contract of those values, and we have to wait up to that point.
We have several counselors in queue, and John, I appreciate the process. Anything you can do to get that number, a number to us, a projected number to us earlier in the year, any given year, because it's really difficult to build the budget when we call and the response is we have no idea. We don't know if it's 0, 10%, we just have no idea.
Right.
And I know you guys then do try to drill down a little bit and you've done a good job, but it would be nice to be able to have you give us a number earlier for
We will
budget purposes.
We will certainly know the digest number in 2016, probably third quarter, usually July, August timeframe. Of course, that goes to the commissioner's office,
Yeah,
and then
sure.
they present that. But we'll have that 16 number.
And
in
we know it's
advance.
a projection. We're not trying to, it's just, it's hard to build a budget when we don't have a projection.
Sure.
So, Counselor Thomas.
Excuse me. Ms. Williams, it seems to me when we started talking about this, one of the things that we were told would be, that we would receive from this, is that there may be parcels that are not on the tax rolls. And I don't know enough about the terminology to know if we are to the point where some of those may have been identified. If we are, did we find a lot? I mean, I know that was one of the issues that was one of the concerns. Are we to that point yet in in your timeline?
We are through with the field checks, which are the confirmation process. If there was a parcel out there or a dwelling or some improvement out there that we had missed, by the end of our field checks, we put our eyes on it. We're in the process of putting that information into the new system, and that's 48, 50%, that data entry edit. But Steve, you may be able to comment on whether we picked up something that we just didn't know about, an entire parcel, for example.
Right.
I'm unaware of that. It certainly would be a mistake on our part. Sometimes they're there and the process hasn't taken place to where we're actually seeing it and recording it. That may be months. But as far as missing something altogether, Steve, have you seen something?
Right. I mean, realistically, from a county standpoint, from what I've seen so far, the county's records are fairly accurate for the most part. I think they do an excellent job with permits and getting those improvements and getting those additional dwellings or those additional, type structures picked up. I haven't really noticed anything as far as when I'm looking at each individual parcel. I haven't noticed entire missing buildings for that matter, or as far as the new construction goes, like I said, and a majority, I would say a majority of those additions to the dwellings, sheds, porches, canopies, carport, maybe they might have enclosed a garage. For the most part, from what I've seen, those have been accounted for. I have noticed some buildings that have been raised, some improvements that we've removed from the parcels in certain areas, but for the most part, overall, I think the county's doing a real good job acknowledging those improvements and listing those. Most of the things, as John mentioned, the improvements that we're finding are minimal in value. Sheds, small additions, maybe someone added a wood deck that they had not visited the property in previous years, and maybe they added it without a permit. That happens quite a bit, where there will be things added without a permit. Those are the kind of things that we're finding.
And do you, in your experience in other communities doing the same kind of work, are we pretty much in line? I mean, you're not finding lots more here than you would find somewhere else?
That's why I said from a data standpoint, look at now that we've had a chance to do a once through with the data is actually pretty good.
Good. Good.
Considering the fact that you've only got 35% of all the improved parcels in the county had anything remotely wrong with it, with some type of edit or change that needed to be done to the parcel after we've done the once over, is pretty good.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Counselor Allen.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to go back to the numbers again. The 69,507, I'm assuming that includes commercial, industrial, manufacturing
Yes, sir.
properties.
That number
That's
includes all real
all
property.
assessed properties. And then the 35, when you send that email, if you could give me a little more detail on how you arrived at that number, is that the total residents?
That is in the 35,014, that is a 2015 number. of how many homestead exemptions we have on real property. By and large, that's going to be residential.
Well, I wanted to know what the total residential properties are, and then how many are on homestead. That's what I was looking for.
Okay, so you want me to exclude the commercial?
Yes,
Well,
please.
Well, I want a breakdown on everything, and
Well,
then
that-
I'll give, you can do.
I'll make
Yeah,
sure, I'll make
that's fine.
sure that's
Yeah.
included.
That's fine.
Yeah,
I'll make sure
I
that's
want
fine.
everything.
Just kind of looking to see, I mean, it's kind of fuzzy when you say 69,507 and then 35, so roughly half have homestead, but that's not the total picture. And we need to exclude the industrial, commercial, and that kind
Yes,
of
sir.
thing to get a really accurate picture of.
Right, and, because I want clarification, yeah, and I didn't bring my notes with me that I took when I met with you, but I recall, and Councilor Henderson was saying, based on garbage collection, we've got, but what I recall is, it seems like there were 53,000 residential properties. And you talked about the percentage of edits and all that, so I'd like a breakdown. Certainly, we have more than 35,000 residential properties.
Oh, yes, sir,
Yeah,
that's just with homestead.
But, and so I wanted to be clear that there's about 53,000, 55,000 residential properties in Muskogee. And then he broke all of that down for me when I met with him. And so I want you to have,
Well, I would have loved to have that information, and if there's a way you could tell when that property changed, when the new owner took over, if on those 25, roughly 25 that do not have homestead, are they in the queue where they have to wait a year before they file for homestead? I mean, that's,
We won't know the 2016 number of homestead until that deadline in April for 16, of
Well,
course. But
okay.
as the city manager said, we have it broke down: residential, commercial, industrial, residential condo. We have it stratified pretty well.
If you want to wait till after the deadline to compile the information, that would be,
I'll give you what we have now,
okay,
and then we can do it again.
okay. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, and Councilor Henderson.
Just a quick question. Do you also have access to how many of those residential properties are owner occupied? Because I guess what I'm trying to get at is what percentage of the non-homestead exemption are homeowners that have elected because they're residents in a state that doesn't pay state tax, but they've made a decision not to file for homestead? I'm just curious what that number is. You don't retain those numbers, do you?
I can't answer that question today, but I
Okay.
will find out the answer.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
thank you. Let's see, we have Councilor Davis.
Good afternoon. I have a somewhat different request from you. I believe it'd be your department that would look into these matters, but could you provide for council somewhat of a, I guess you can call it a management tool or just an understanding so we know what is, what the next several years are projected to be like? And you might want to get with the finance department and talk to them. They may have additional requests. But could you provide us a report specifically as it pertains to tax abatements and expiring, whether it's this year for the next 5 to 10 years, so we can kind of get an understanding of what new revenue might be coming into the city and what we can expect? The other is a request, I'm not sure if you can do it or not, but could you provide, say, the last 5 years, I would prefer 10 if you could do it, of the amount of land that's come off the tax rolls for whether nonprofit organizations out there that on the opposite side of the revenue that we've somewhat lost in property taxes?
Yes, sir.
You can do that?
I can.
Okay, that would be your department that works on that stuff.
It is. As a matter of fact, the first that you asked for, we're in the process of doing now. It's a task that was given to me last week. So
Okay.
I'm working on that as we speak. And the second one you asked for, we've talked about it in the office before. I know it's some information that would be nice to have. But yes, sir, I can get that for you.
Okay, great, thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
I asked Richard Bishop a question, And I found out that if a nonprofit or government agency like Columbus State has property, but they receive rent for that property, then they have to pay property tax on it.
Ma'am, that is governed by law. When you have a tax exempt property, regardless of who owns it, you look at the purpose of that exemption and why they have it. And any additional land, it could be a church with a rental house. If that rental, or if that house is occupied by staff of that church, and that's part of their package for employment, that's not taxable. If they in turn rent that out for additional income that's not directly aligned with their purpose of their exemption, then that becomes something that has to be approved. And if it's not in accordance with the reason they're exempt, it's going to be taxable.
Okay. I was surprised.
And that's a real quick summary on a real thick law. So I hope that's okay.
Looks like that's it.
Well, and Madam Mayor and Council, my purpose really of meeting with Betty and John was in advance of not this budget, but, well, partly this budget, but budgets going forward, because I was a bit anxious to see all these findings that were going to bring revenue to the city of things that were not on the books. And a couple of things I learned from meeting with them is that there's great communications between our inspections and codes and permit system and the tax assessor's office. They have access to permits that are pulled where people are doing things adding value to their property, and then they are on it. And what I found is that most of what they're finding out there was already on the books, and as he mentioned, there were minor edits. And so I asked John and Betty for the bottom line, should we expect this considerable growth in revenue from this process? And he let me down when he told me no. And so I wanted you to have the benefit of his early report and early projection that based on the minor edits, as he indicated, a shed that they didn't show on the property that's not going to add value, but minor edits based on that, just at this point, we are not expecting, they are not expecting that at the end of the day, there's going to be significant growth in the digest as a result of what we're doing. But so I wanted you to know that now. And so if you're waiting and can't wait for January 1, 2017, when they switch the system over from OASIS to IAS World and the calculations occur, and you think it's going to be significantly more in IAS World than in OASIS, it doesn't look like that's going to be the case. So I just wanted you to just know that early. And so we'll get you the information that he shared with me, and I took notes, and so he'll give me the more current information. I met with them about a month ago, but I wanted to get them on the agenda to come and let you hear from them and ask questions, and you walk away with a little bit more work to do.
Always, yes, sir.
Yeah.
Might I add, if I can, when I told you we can't not anticipate a significant growth based on this project, what we do know is we will have an extremely accurate assessment of every parcel in the county. So properties that we may not have seen for years because they've been homesteaded, nothing's been added or removed from the property, it's just been there at its assessed value. We'll know as of 1/1/17 exactly what every parcel is worth in the county. That alone it makes our job an A+ rating, just because we now know we're accurate. Somebody stood up here today and said one of our primary objectives was to increase assessments. I'm sorry, that's not our goal. Our goal is to be accurate, uniform, fair, and equitable. So we don't lean either way. It is an accurate assessment that we're looking for, and that's what this is going to provide us. So that alone should be encouraging, because there should be values that were different when they were assessed compared to now.
Yeah. And just finally, let me say that when I met with Betty and John, I know that Betty Middleton is happy to have him, and I'm happy to have you on board, because he's doing great work. So thank you for coming.
Thanks, sir.